But I want to start with a question this morning. What does it look like when God is actually moving? Everybody's just staring so intently at me right now. Not the idea of God moving. Not the bumper sticker version. Hello, microphone stand. Not the Instagram post that everybody likes to share and see. But what does it look like in a room like this one, in a city like Franklin, Kentucky, when God moves? I ask that because I think we can get so used to the language of church that we stop expecting the substance of it. What does that mean? Well, we say God is good, and we mean it. But sometimes we say it the same way and in the same tone that we say, have a nice day. It's just words that we pass back and forth. I don't want that for us. I want us to mean it. I want us to genuinely talk about how God moved in this place, in this community. And I think the way you mean something, or the way you learn to mean something, is when you look at the evidence of it. So before I tell you where we're going, Vision Sunday, talking about the vision, I want to make sure we actually talk about what we've seen and where we've been over the last year. You came in early, we had, Kate, could you throw up just that ongoing slide of pictures and just let it play? For a moment, just watch the screen. For a moment, you can see what God has done in this place. And I don't just put these up here because Angie takes phenomenal photos. But as I told Angie when we got here, her gift, what she brings to the table in ministry at Living Free is she shares the gospel through imagery. So we're going to let this play for a little while. And every once in a while, just glance up and recognize that God is moving and living free. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's loud. Our first baptism Sunday was loud. It was raucous. It was a party. And I want that more. I don't want us to just have programs. You see, when I look back over the last 12 months at Living Free Franklin, I don't see just programs. I don't just see things that we've made up. I see people. I see people who showed up in this room. And when they left differently. Some of them walked away when they rolled in wheelchairs. People who came looking and found something real. We have watched spiritual formation deepen in people who weren't even sure what spiritual formation meant. They didn't even know what it looked like when they got here. They didn't even know that God was real. We've seen salvations, not just decisions at an altar, that we treasure those. We treasure the moment where you give your life. But when it starts to show kingdom impact and your life starts to change, it is more celebratory than for me. Because yes, I rejoice when you come to know, but when you allow God to do a work in you, that's when things start to shift. It's genuine life change. I want to see people who don't live the same way they used to, where they lay things down at the altar and don't pick them back up again, where that weight is lifted off their shoulders. See, in this room, we've seen people get baptized in the Holy Spirit. It moves through this house. I've been in rooms where we said that the Holy Spirit was moving, and what that meant maybe in that moment was it was just a little warm and fuzzy in the room. I've seen the rooms where it's an experience or where it seems almost made up, but I've also been in the rooms where it's so real that Heaven has come down in that place and you can't even stand. This is a place where people have genuine encounters with the living God, kind that leave a mark. We've seen healings. We've seen water baptisms. Man, I remember that first one. You'll see the picture, but when Johnny got to baptize Jackson, his son, his eldest boy, and he couldn't get out of the wheelchair, so he knelt down on the side and he baptized his son. And I'm standing there. Oh, man. It's God moving. It's not us making something up. We couldn't have crafted that if we tried. But God did. And that family's been changed because of it. That little boy has been changed because of it. That little boy stood and said, I belong to Jesus. And the heavens celebrated. And so do we. You see, God has moved in this building, literally. We remodeled the sanctuary at the beginning of the year, and that was work. And if you were a part of that work, thank you. But this last week, we started a new work. We've begun to remodel our kids' facility because I believe kids deserve more than gray walls. But you see, those rooms matter because the children in them matter. They're not set aside for, babysitting and childcare arrangements on Sunday morning. Those are places where little kids find Jesus. It's not just so we can come in here and have adult church. They are the church. And they are experiencing God move in those spaces. They celebrate communion when we celebrate communion. And it's beautiful because they're learning. I have my kids come home and ask me some of the most robust theological questions I have ever heard. And I hang out with some people that are really theological nerds. But my kids will come home and ask me questions from a perspective that I've never even thought of. So I know what's happening in there is working. And God is moving. But if you're one of the people that helped clear the rooms or paint the walls, thank you for investing in the kingdom. I don't know if you noticed, but our nursery and our preschool now have carpet. Instead of busting their heads on the concrete, they will bounce off of the carpet. But when you gave, you invested in a generation. You see, we've walked with people through the hardest seasons of their lives over the last year. Grief, sickness, marriage, people getting married, people wanting to not be married anymore, loss, everything for the kingdom. Because in every instance, in this space, in our lives, in your lives, we get to look like the kingdom. Last year, you let us in and we walked with you. And this is one of the most sacred things a pastor gets to do. And I don't take it lightly. You share your stories, you share your pain, you share your struggles. And we keep all of that stays with us. What you share with us is in confidence. But I want to confidently say thank you for allowing us to speak into your lives. I tell everybody that I encounter, because I've been in the Tennessee district since 2007. So a lot of people ask, how's ministry? And I'll honestly say, the last year has been the greatest year of ministry since I got here. It is the most fulfilling and joyful season. Were all the other seasons miserable and bad? No. But this one has been the best. It's because God brought us to you. I'm going to be honest. Last year, when we moved up here, it was a stretching season. I had done all the roles in the church except for lead pastor. And Brian was there for some of it, so he knows. But this was a season of stretching and molding. And as we were stretched and molded, so were many of you. I love it in this church that we went from a handful of kids to a full slate of programming on Wednesday nights. We started with a few kids on Sunday morning when we got here and wondering whether or not we were going to even need our nursery and our preschools on Sunday mornings. And now every Sunday we know we need workers. Wednesday night, my goodness, when we have, 9 to 11 little boys in Royal Rangers, I'm overwhelmed because we didn't have that a year ago. When we have missionettes for the girls that come, Lisa's so excited. When I can look at our adult Bible study table and see like 20-something people around the table, it is amazing because there was nothing when we got here. I remember the invitation to go over to Miss Christine's house with Matthew and Jim and say, hey, we don't have anything on Wednesday. Do you want to do a Bible study? And I was like, we should have something on Wednesday. Yeah, I want to go over for a Bible study. And God moved that and shaped it into, we used to meet in this room and we had like 8 tables connected and it felt like a giant dining table where we just dove into God's word. And that's what I've noticed. This church is hungry for the word. I watched when we got here, Pastor Taylor and Adriana had, I think, 2 kids. 2 kids. Faith, thanks for sticking around. 2 kids. Between the 2 campuses, we took 30 kids or 30 people to camp. We had 11 kids. That is awesome. So God is moving. I've learned that you're not just hungry for an experience. I think the experiential church is starting to fade. We can manufacture experiences. You can budget for a lot of things, but when God touches your life, when you come into a place that's not just a produced show, and God does something, it changes your everything. And that's what he's been doing. I was sitting there trying to figure out, what am I going to say today? And I wrote all these things down, and I was like, man, I've got like 14 pages of single-spaced notes. We're going to be here for 2 hours. But all I know is that when God shows up and changes somebody's life, every Sunday you go home grateful. I enjoy my Sunday afternoon nap because I lay down and think about what God did every morning. Is it a job? Yeah. It's also a joy. All over again every Sunday, every Wednesday, and all the days in between. You see, that is the faithfulness of God. Not our strategy, not our talent, but his faithfulness. That's where we've been. But now I want to shift to where we're going. But first, can we pause and just be grateful for a moment? Father, before we take one more step forward, we want to stop and say thank you. Not because it's just the right thing to say, but because it's the true thing. Everything we've named, you did that. It wasn't us. And we don't want to move into a new season without first standing still in this one and acknowledging your faithfulness. We receive it. We mark it. We're eternally grateful for it. Amen. Whew. So we've looked back, but now we have to look forward. Before we do that, I want to say something that I hope frames everything that comes next. We talk about vision a lot in church. It is a church keyword, vision. And we often just talk about vision over and over again. But you see, vision without direction is just a collection of great ideas. Every church has vision. Every pastor has a dream. I have a drawer full of them. They're all on sticky pads over there. But a dream that doesn't have a road under it goes nowhere. It's just spiritual ambition. It's dressed up in nice language to sound cool. But God hasn't called us to be creative. He's called us to be faithful. There's a difference. See, creativity can impress people, but faithfulness changes people. So today, I don't want to just inspire you. I want to show you the direction. See, in Acts 1:8, just before Jesus ascended to heaven, he gave his disciples something very specific. He said, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all of Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." I want you to think about when he said this. These disciples had just watched their teacher die on a cross. They had lived through 3 days of the worst grief they had ever known. Then he was alive again. And they spent 40 days with the resurrected Jesus. Man, that would have been awesome. 40 days of watching him walk through walls and eat fish and explain the scriptures like they'd never heard them before. And then he said, "Before I go, here's an assignment." He didn't say, "Go wherever feels right." He didn't say, "Find a model that works for you that someone else is doing and scale it." He gave them geography. He gave them a sequence. Jerusalem first, that's home. That's where you are right now. Start there. Then Judea, that's the surrounding region, the familiar places nearby. Then Samaria, and here's where it gets uncomfortable. Samaria was not a popular destination. Jews and Samaritans didn't speak. There were centuries of bad blood between them, theological disagreements, cultural contempt. Most Jewish travelers crossed to the other side of the road when they got near it. Jesus said, "Go through it." That's important. Jesus didn't let geography become an excuse. He didn't let history become a ceiling in their lives. He said the witness goes everywhere, including the hard places, including the people you'd rather avoid, including the part of town that makes you uncomfortable. And then, finally, to the ends of the earth, beyond what you can see, beyond what you can plan for. That is the direction. And that's what I want for Living Free Franklin. Brian, would you come help me? If you don't know Brian and Michelle and their awesome kids, you should. They've been missionaries. I've known them
quite a long time.
Well, quite a long time. It's been a minute. For a while.
Absolutely.
And missionaries to India, Peru. We've gone on mission trips together. We shared an office together and tried not to kill each other.
For a week.
Turns out attic offices in the middle of summer are not fun. No, they're not. But this is a man who carries vision in a way that I think some of you need to begin to carry vision. Something that stirs you, something that propels you forward. And I'm not just saying that because I know his personality and he's self-driven, because he is. But I want you to hear from him for just a few minutes. I'm going to ask him some questions. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he doesn't say anything embarrassing or too embarrassing.
I could.
You could. Please don't. I need to sit within swinging reach of you, I guess. So you guys were serving in Peru. I know that because we went on a trip there before you actually went down there. But what'd you see there?
Man, that's a loaded question. Peru is mainly Catholicism. So when we go to the ends of the earth, normally we think of the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, the Muslims, all of those things. But just as hard as those are, Catholicism has its own trouble. Because Catholicism, just like Hinduism and all those things, are passed down from birth. So that's one of the main struggles of people groups that we have. All of Latin America, they just have that issue with that. But I would say one of the things that I saw the most that I can't unsee is the brokenness of families. So many times we had pastors and campus pastors that would end up in divorce and that would end up doing different things that we won't talk about. But the brokenness of the families was the biggest thing for me. So yeah.
Can't unsee it though, can you?
You can't.
So what is it? So in knowing what you know about Peru and what you experienced there with the people, with engaging Catholicism, especially generational Catholicism, and theirs is a little different than it is here, but like, what did that, so what did the church look like there? So when you look at the church there, do you see similarities or differences or in comparison to the church here?
I would say as a whole, I'm not going to, as a whole, the church there and the church here are on total opposite ends of the spectrum. In one way, the church there is very devoted to what they do. They're there 3-4 days a week. But on another end, you have the church that is very fractured and very legalistic, so they're not reaching outside of the four walls. If you don't fit the norm, if you don't look like you're supposed to look, if you don't wear what you're supposed to wear, they don't want you there. They might not say that, but that's their actions. And I see here, coming from there, a lot of times the church here, we've gone from meeting often. If you go back in history of the American church, we met often. We met more than once or twice a week. We knew each other. We did life together. And so in that aspect, the American church has gone the opposite way, in my opinion. They're not as devoted to what they do. And now we have Facebook and we have all those things. So people like to just watch it online and they like to not engage, and they're in their own little bubble. And they're always in the building. They're always around the building. So, yeah.
So church is more still centralized for the community there.
It is. Yeah. Okay. It's absolutely centralized for the community. But the biggest problem, and I see this, I would say, it's an American problem as much as it is a Peruvian problem of not reaching outside of the four walls.
Gotcha. So was there a moment while you were there, been there a while now, was there a moment where God kind of spoke to you or challenged you regarding how you should engage the church, or spoke to you something that might have changed how you see even the church?
I'll get a little personal. God kind of challenged me with the church and with my own life and a lot of the reasons, I'll go back to the first point where I said pastors and campus pastors were being divorced and having affairs, and just so much brokenness was happening in the church, and it was all family based. And God kind of talked to me, and he's talked to me more since, of focusing on the family, my own included, because as ministers, and just as people, we're all ministers in some way of the gospel. And if we are not if our family is not where it needs to be, then we'll only be a shell of what God wants us to be.
Ooh. I will not stand there and preach for a while. We're going to get there. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Don't go there now. Okay. So when you drive through Franklin, because you guys you're living in Goodlettsville right now.
It's too far away.
Too far away. But when you drive from Goodlettsville to Franklin, what do you see? Who do you see that you don't think we're reaching yet?
Ooh. We could be here a while. No, I would just say, I was looking up a stat. I forgot it already. But families as a whole, we have a culture today in America, and it's the same here as Franklin, where God has become a secondary figure in our lives. So what happens when that happens is ball games become more important, and what happened on Saturday now happens on Sunday during church. You don't need to smack me anymore?
No.
All right.
I'm
awesome.
worried. If they throw stuff, I just want to
no, so I see that. I see the family dynamic. I see people that we need to get out there and reach. We need to think outside of the box, outside of the programs of how we reach people. And we need to be intentional about going to places like the park and interacting. One thing we did there, we have a ministry called Gen Luce. It's Chi Alpha. It's a student ministry-based thing to college students. So what we did with our students is we made them get uncomfortable. We brought them to the park, we brought them to the square, and we made them talk to people, and we made them share their faith or just pray for them and do something like that. And we need to do that more here. So yeah, and I also see a people that we tend to look down on, and I don't think it's intentional, but it is the homeless. A lot of times, not this church. I've talked with Pastor Ty, so not this church, but a lot of times a pastor wants the tithers. They want the good workers, and we're not willing to invest in the people that we feel are below us. So.
I think I've written 4 sermons while you were up here. If Living Free Franklin, because you were here when it was restoration, and if Living Free Franklin decided to really show up in this community, not just have good intentions, but to actually show up and engage Franklin and the surrounding areas, what does that look like to you? What do you think would change? What do you think?
I think it's not as hard as we make it. I think we want, even with good intentions, like he was talking about, we want to do these big things and we want to reach the masses. But in order to reach the masses, we need to reach the one. So for me, to go out and reach Franklin and the surrounding areas of Franklin isn't done through some big program or some big thing. Now, those things aren't bad in itself. We can do those things, but to reach Franklin, we have to be intentional. We as a body have to go out and we have to make disciples. And a disciple isn't something that we just meet on a Sunday or on a Wednesday, or we just get coffee with once a week. It's being intentional. It's being somebody that you do life with, that you, like Pastor Ty said, are you okay with that 2 a.m. call, that 3 a.m. call? And I think that's the only way in Franklin and anywhere really that we're going to truly reach the community and people around us.
So you've seen the ends of the earth.
I've been to India. It's on the other side of the world.
Yeah. You've seen the ends of the earth, and you have also been in, Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. So you've experienced all those. How do you think we can minister here the same capacity that you did when you were in Peru? Do you think that we can be as intentional with our lives as you were when you picked up and moved yourself to a different country and how we serve our community?
I think we can. I think the question is, do we want to? And that's the question we all have to ask ourselves. Do we want to? Are you willing to do it? Because it's not a can I? Because we all can do something. And we throw that something around and then we're like, okay, well, we can give a little bit, but we can do more than give. We can be intentional with the people around us, whether it's our workplace, whether it's our family that doesn't know Christ, whether it's in the school systems, whatever it be. We can be intentional about telling people about Jesus. It's not just about inviting them to church. It's doing life with them, going through the sticky and messy situations, to lead them to Jesus and walk with them through that process.
Got it? Thank you, Brian. Can we give him a hand? So now we have perspective. We've seen the ends. We've heard about the ends of the earth. But now how do we do it here? Well, as I said, vision without direction is just a collection of great ideas. So now we have to have direction. So here's direction. We're going to start here in this house. We're going to move outward, and we're not going to skip the hard places. We're committed to missions abroad. That's almost, for me, that's easy, because that's just oftentimes either going on a trip or sending resources. Give, go, send, pray. That's what we do with missions abroad. And we're committed to missions right here in this house, but we're also committed to missions in Franklin, in Simpson County, in this community. Community engagement is not a program. It is the church. Being the church in the place that God put the church. Judea was Jerusalem's backyard. Ours is right out that door. Here's something I believe about this church. You cannot sustain outward mission without inward depth. You can run on fumes for a while. I've done it. And a lot of churches do. But eventually a church that doesn't have roots dries up. Jesus said it this way in John 15, abide in me and I in you. As the church cannot bear fruit, as a branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. The word abide in the Greek is meno. It means to remain, to stay put, to not drift. Jesus wasn't giving devotional advice. He was giving direction regarding the only way the mission works. You don't go out and then come back to God. You go out from God. Which means if we want to reach Franklin and send people to Peru and beyond, we have to be people who are deeply, unhurriedly connected to Jesus. Not just busy for Jesus. That gets really easy and leads to burnout. We have to be connected to Jesus. And here's what I've noticed, and we're really bad at slowing down. Or is that just me? Anybody else? We're really bad at slowing down long enough to actually be with him. We scroll, we schedule, we rush from one thing to the next, and somewhere in all of it, we squeeze Jesus in between the commute and kid pickup. And then we wonder why we feel empty or lost. The pace of modern life is not our friend, and this summer we're going to push back against it on purpose. See, so here's the direction. July, we're going to practice this thing called the Summer Slowdown. For some of you, July is like super busy. Vacation here and there, getting kids to where they need to be, swim lessons, all this stuff. But for us, we're going to call it the Summer Slowdown. This is not a series of sermons about taking naps, though I do believe in naps. I'm a practitioner of the nap. This is an invitational, communal invitation. It's intentional to slow our outer lives and our inner lives down so we can actually hear from God again. Think about Mary and Martha in Luke 10. Martha is working, running around, preparing, producing. She's not doing anything wrong. She's doing the right job. She's doing what good hosts do, especially when they are practicing hospitality. But Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet, and Jesus says that she chose the better thing. I don't think Jesus was dismissing the work. I think he was saying that there was a posture in her heart that made everything else possible. And busyness can steal it from you if you let it in. Some of you, your job is your identity. Busyness is your badge of honor. But maybe there's more for you. Martha was distracted by many things. How many of us are distracted by many things on a daily basis? I have ADHD, so it happens all the time. I'm a squirrel hunter. I chase them down. But how many of us have sat in a quiet moment and felt guilty about it? Moms? Like we should be doing something. I can't just sit here. I want to tell you that guilt is not from God. That is the pace of the world trying to keep you from the presence of the Lord. July, we slow down. We focus on family. We focus on Sabbath. We focus on sitting at the feet of Jesus and letting him speak to our lives. 4 weeks. Slow down your life, your outer life, your inner life, and open yourself to God and learn that hard word, to abide. These aren't just themes, they are practices. And practices require time and intentionality. I want families to eat dinner together. Oh, yes, at a table. In my house, it's for more. It should be for more than just holding clean laundry. My wife's not in there, so she can't hear me. I want to see families put the phones away. I was sitting at McDonald's the other day, and I look over, and mom, dad, son, daughter. I'm like, yeah, nobody's talking anymore. How do you know what's going on in their lives? How do you know what is happening in their day-to-day if you don't even communicate? And then you just get mad at them when they don't do what you want them to do. What are you showing them? Sit at the table. Talk again. Pray again. Be present with the blessings, the people that God gave you. The pace of the kingdom is not frantic. It's steady and intentional. Jesus was never in a hurry. And then when we go from July into August, it's when we launch. We're going to get a little busy. Not like crazy busy. But not just any launch. A launch built on what we've been building this entire time. All summer, even this past year. This fall, Living Free Franklin is moving into, it's a way of thinking. Practicing the way of Jesus. If you haven't read the book, read the book. It's a model of discipleship. But here's the heart of it. I just want us to learn these 3 things, and this is why it caught my attention. Be with Jesus, become like Jesus, and do what Jesus did. In that order, not the other way around. You see, a lot of church programs start with doing. Serve here, join this, volunteer for that. And doing is good. Doing is okay. But doing without being, is just performance. And I'm tired of performing. It's Martha running around the kitchen while the whole point is sitting in the living room with Jesus. So 2 things are launching in August that I want to clearly explain, because I think if you understand what they actually are, you'll want to be a part of them. And yes, I know this Sunday sermon is a little different, but I need you to get on board with where we're going. The first is community groups. I want to tell you up front what these are not. They're not your normal small group with a curriculum. They're not a Sunday morning recap. They're not Bible study with a workbook and a leader who has all the answers. We have Wednesday nights for that, and that's good. But community groups are something different. Here's the vision. You find 2 other people or 2 other couples, and you commit to breaking bread in each other's homes at least once a month. That's it. You eat together. You sit around somebody's table and you talk about your real life, what God's doing, not a theological discussion, not a lesson, your life, what God is doing in it, where you're struggling, where you're seeing him move, what you're afraid of, what you're grateful for. Break bread at the table. If you have kids, let them play, but also let them hear you talk about what God's doing, so that the next generation will know the God of the last. Jesus didn't build his movement in synagogues. He built it around tables. Luke 7, he's eating at the Pharisee's house, and a woman crashes the dinner and washes his feet with tears. I'm not saying you have to do that at dinner. In Luke 19, he walks past the whole crowd and invites himself to the home of a tax collector nobody wanted to be around. In Luke 24, after the resurrection, the disciples on the road to Emmaus didn't recognize him until he sat down with them and broke bread. Something happens at the table. And it doesn't happen anywhere else. You can sit in this room on Sunday morning and feel completely anonymous. You can clap at the right moments and leave and go the whole week without anyone knowing what's actually going on in your life. And some of us have gotten comfortable with that. But that's not community. That is attendance. Community is when someone knows your name, knows your story, and shows up in your kitchen when things fall apart at 2:00 in the morning. It's when they miss you when you're not here on Sunday. Community is when you're not performing for anyone. Community is when you trust people enough to say, I'm not okay, and they stay anyway until you are. That's what we're building, not a program, a table. 2 or 3 people in your home breaking bread, talking about God and life and the places where those 2 things are meeting or not meeting. In your real, actual week, not a curriculum, no requirements, no recap of Sunday, unless you really want to. Just life, just the table, just showing up for each other. The second thing launching in August is family dinner, because I believe the house should show the example of what everything else should look like. So every Wednesday night, 5 p.m., Living Free Franklin is going to set a table and invite Franklin to it. Free. What? Yeah. Free. No tickets. No registrations. No expectations. No requirement to be a church member, a Christian, a regular attender, or anything else. You don't even have to stay for the Wednesday night programs. Just come break bread and let God do the rest. Come, sit down, eat with us, because the table is not just for people who already belong. The table is how people find out that they do belong. See, Luke 14, Jesus tells a story about a man who throws a great banquet, and the invited guests all make excuses. So the man tells his servant, go out into the streets and alleys, bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. And when there's still room, go further. Go out to the roads and the country lanes. Compel them to come in. I want my house to be full. See, that is the heart of God. A full table and an open door. Family dinner is not an outreach event. It's not bait to get people to come to Wednesday night services. It's just a table that says you're welcome here. You don't have to earn your seat. Come as you are. But here's how we start practicing that. In July, every Wednesday night, we're going to do faith and family and park nights, because in July, we're going to put a great emphasis on family. Dinner at 5, come to the park, eat with us, bring your neighbors, bring your kids. No agenda, just a table. At 6:30, our age-specific ministries, we have Rangers, Missionettes, Youth, and Bible study. We're going to do all those things at the park. Will it be complicated? Absolutely. But we're going to do it because they have to see us outside of this building. The world has to see us outside of this building. See, all these ministries matter. So we're going to take our kids, go to the park. Rangers and Missionettes, it's not just babysitting or entertaining. They're teaching, they're intentional formation moments for every stage of life on Wednesday night. But they all start with dinner together at the table, because that's how family works, or it should. Let me put it this way. You don't go to your kid's event and sit in separate sections and never talk to each other and call that family. You go eat together first, you sit at the table, then you go do the thing. So July is practice. August is the full launch. Vision without direction is just a collection of great ideas. The direction in this moment, here, right now, is to go deep so we can go far. And I'm about to close, but I want to take a few moments because I think that this is what kind of holds everything together. We talk a lot in church circles about the book of Acts. We quote it, we post it, we share it on everything, we name our sermon series after it, but I'm not sure we always mean it. Acts is not a nostalgic story. It's not a museum piece about what God used to do for people who were more faithful than we are. It's a blueprint. And blueprints are meant to be built from. So real quick, Acts 2. Look at this with me. After Pentecost, after the Spirit falls, after 3,000 people are saved in one day, here's what the church looked like. It said they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. I want you to notice something out of Acts 2:42. The signs and wonders are in there. The awe is in there. But so is broke bread in their homes. So is glad and sincere hearts. So is together. And so is every day. The early church was not a weekend gathering. It was a daily way of life. See, the word devoted, proskaterio in the Greek, means to persist with effort, to hold on and not let go. They didn't drift in and out of community when it was convenient. They persisted in it. They chose it. They held on to each other. And what happened? The Lord added to their number daily. not because they had a great outreach campaign, not because their facility was impressive, not because their worship band was good, because they were so genuinely and obviously filled with the presence of God that the people outside kept looking in and asking, "What is that? How do I get into that room?" That's what a community group is. That's what family dinner is. That's what our Wednesday night ministries are. It's what they're building toward. Not attendance, belonging. I want to say something that might sting a little, but I want to try and say it with love. A lot of us have been doing church without doing community. We drive in on Sunday, we sit in our seat, we shake a few hands, and we drive home. And we call that church. But that's not what Acts 2 describes. It's not the blueprint. We're not building from the blueprint. We can't complain when church doesn't look the way it's supposed to. You see, the blueprint has a table in it. Jesus never built anything without a table. He called 12 men to follow him, and the first thing he did was to do life with them. He ate with them. He traveled with them. He sat with them when they were confused and grieving and walking through things in their lives. You know, it's really crazy. My wife and I, this is going to be a real like bad pastor moment. So I never watched The Chosen. What? Yeah, no, I never did. Never watched it. So we started it a couple weeks ago. And I cry every episode. And my wife can tell when I'm about to cry because I go, I think I'm on like episode 8 with Nicodemus right now. And I watch them slow. I can't take too much at one time because I'm like, I got the Bible scrolling through my head and I'm like watching it in parallel scripture. They messed that up. Okay, cool. But I've been watching this and like every time something happens, every time somebody's healed, every time something happens, God changes something. When the paralytic came, stood up and walked and everybody was like, what? And the Pharisees were like, no. And like, all this stuff is happening. Every time there's an embrace. I'm a hugger. I do. That's what I do. But I love it because you don't usually embrace somebody that you're not in community with, that you don't have a relationship with, right? You walk up hugging strangers. I will say I was that kid in high school, college that had the free hugs t-shirt. But normally, we have to know someone before we hug them, right? As I've watched this show, every interaction that has transpired, there's an embrace. And I finally got to like episode 8 with Nicodemus, where he has this exchange with, the dude that's playing Jesus. And like, I love this story. Like I've read it a bajillion times, but there's something about seeing it portrayed on screen, watching the emotion of a man being challenged to leave everything and to go into community with Jesus. In the moment where he's overwhelmed and he kneels in front of Jesus, when they have that midnight exchange, it just broke me, man. But that wasn't it. Because then a few days later, in the episode, Nicodemus is hiding around the corner of the building as Jesus meets with the disciples and the followers before they leave. And Nicodemus in this episode leaves a bag of money so they can pay for their expenses and whatever. But he is grieved because he cannot let go of who he is to become who Jesus wants him to be. And he knows that Jesus is the one. Jesus has shown us a better way. But do you know what I love about that episode? When Jesus meets with Nicodemus in that episode, he sit at a table. He says, "Shall we sit?" So my question to you is, shall we sit? Will we sit at the table with Jesus? Or will we choose to live life the same way we've always done it? 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and wondering why the church isn't working the way we think it should. As we move forward, that is my invitation. Join us at the table. I can't guarantee that the food will always be good, but the community will be, because we'll be gathering around Jesus. And that's all I want to do. In Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth, I think we can impact them all. But we have to start here. Honestly, a year from now, I'm going to speak this in faith. I would love to see us have outgrown this building and prepping for our 6th annual grand opening. But if we do this right, this space cannot contain what God has for us. He has set us here for a reason, and I'm tired of the doors being closed to the church house. It's time for them to be open. And yes, the homeless, yes, the destitute, the poor, the broken, all of them. That's why I want Wednesday dinner to be free, because I want you to come without any expectation. Why is it free? Because I was sitting there thinking about how much it cost to feed my family of 5 at Zaxby's. And I'm like, you know how much spaghetti I could buy for $60? Just think, if a few of us became intentional about feeding a community on Wednesday night, a few families said, you know what? I don't want to do Zaxby's anymore, but I do want to take what I've been given and invest it in the kingdom. Man, I could feed an army for $60 if I buy spaghetti, noodles, and cheap sauce. It doesn't have to be fancy, though, to invite people to the table. I will tell you, though, I will tell you this right now. On our 1-year anniversary next year, or our 2-year anniversary next year, God already gave me the vision for what that one looks like. We're going to set a banquet table across this room and fill it from top to bottom with food and invite people to come and dine that day. And we're just going to talk about Jesus. Because I want to practice for what we're looking forward to at the marriage supper one day. Because I believe we give our best now.